Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of room for growth. And obviously, Gen G is an expansion team this season. So, Jordan, what are some of the challenges and goals of your role as head of revenue operations? Can you explain Gen G's business model and what it looks like? You know, are you mostly relying on sponsorships?
Jordan, you're muted.
The host has me muted. So anyway, we're the first. So I think for a lot of it, it's kind of like explaining to people what our play is here, why we got involved in the NBA 2K League. In addition to kind of what we're doing, we also negotiated with the NBA to get rights to China. So technically, our team right now, we're the Gen G Tigers of Shanghai. Our plan eventually over time is to move the team to Shanghai. It comes with a suite of assets to activate the NBA 2K League in China, and the NBA is going to be our partner for us in helping to build academies and training facilities in China for the game. So we're connecting it. Jeff actually worked with us in Korea, going over there for an APAC invitational tournament that we had. So our vision for this in terms of scaling, I mean, yes, we want to do partnerships and sponsorships, but that's kind of short term. For us, long term, we're getting into the game because we really want to use it as a way to build up esports in Asia and kind of capitalize on the popularity of basketball around the world.
And Kurt, you created the MBPA 2K, which was the first premier Pro-Am league before the actual 2K league existed, and the NBA invested into this venture. So what motivated you to create the MBPA 2K? You know, can you share with us about your journey that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, the MPBA basically started when I was actively playing, and it was other leagues going on. I was actually playing in another league called the ABL, and Tawan Fairley, who is the GM and coach for Mavs GG, he was playing in another league, the SBA, the Structured Basketball Association. We crossed paths. We started playing together. One day, just out of the blue, we was in a party, and he said, "Kurt, I think I can start a league better than all the leagues that are going on right now." And I said, "Hey, if whatever you want to do, I'm with you." And I said, "What do you want to call it?" He said, "The MPBA." And I said, "What does that stand for?" And he said, "My Player Basketball Association." And from that point forward, we just dove right into it. We started at the beginning of 2015, and we just marketed it on Twitter, Facebook, got a website up and going. Also had another partner with us, Lawrence West, who is the general manager for Hornets Venom GT at the NBA 2K League. And we just did a great job of spreading it throughout the community. It grew, and a lot of top players started signing up and playing in it, and, you know, such as the Dimes and your Ramos and everybody that's in the NBA 2K League to this day. And it just grew from there. And I pretty much stopped playing. LT, he still loved to play, so it put a lot of work on my back to run it. But I seen a bigger picture, and especially in 2017 when the NBA 2K League announced this presence, it kind of gave us a little bit more driving force to what we were doing. We still didn't know what to expect, but here we are today. You know, happy to be a part of the league and just grateful for what we created. And it was just out of love and passion for the game.
And I think that everyone here with an entrepreneurial spirit can really touch upon that in terms of, you know, you started out with a vision. It was a passion project with you and a few of your friends, and you were able to grow it into something national. So thank you for that. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So what was it like, or what's it like now being here and seeing your friends across the league move across the country and running their own organizations?
I mean, it's kind of just piggybacks off what you said. It's just about a testimony to entrepreneurship. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing or what we had at the time, and we was just, like I said, doing it out of love and passion for the game, and just to see how everything's evolved from that point until now makes me grateful that we stuck with it and made something out of it. I get to see people in a lot of different walks of esports, and I'm learning a lot of different things. You know, I get the benefit of living in New York half of the year and just seeing a lot of different things from it. So definitely, I get excited every time I talk about it, and every time I see my friends doing well, and and just I'm still maintaining my role in the community and pushing people to strive for their goals and what they want to achieve out of, you know, the 2K and everything that's involved with it. So it's definitely something that I, you know, is just I'm just grateful for everything that we've accomplished out of it.
That's great. And I just want to stop real quick and say to everybody watching, if you have any questions that you'd like to have our panelists answer, we have a 15-minute Q&A at the end. You can feel free to send a chat to the host and with your question, and we'll be sure to answer that or have them answer that. And speaking on entrepreneurship a little bit more, Jeff, your footprint in journalism has expanded greatly over the past few years. You've worked for many different media entities over the years. What are some of your favorite stories that you've covered?
Wow. Yeah. Now you put me on the spot. I mean, the thing is like, let's stick with the 2K league. You know,
if you don't talk about the Jeter interview, I'll be pretty upset.
Well, I'm not talking. Look, that was a private. I have no idea what went on in that interview. No, I mean, I think that there are certain NBA 2K league players. One guy I always go back to is OFAB, who was the second overall pick by Celtics Crossover Gaming in the first season. And I had a podcast during the first season, and I did an interview with him, and, you know, just kind of like he was emerging as one of the top players in the league. And what I found out about him was that he's opened up on 2K TV about this and various entities about really the depression that he faced, you know, as kind of this guy who's playing NBA 2K on the side and doesn't necessarily know, you know, what exactly is going on in his career and what he wants to do in his life. But I think that, you know, following along with him as he explained that story, and now he's in total, his fitness is incredible right now. He's like, it looks like he's just a jacked guy who plays one of the top players in the NBA 2K league. And it's been amazing to tell his story from someone who was, you know, this didn't exist and now has changed his life.
Speaking of it didn't exist, I mean, this is an open question for all four of you to answer. What's it like to work in such a non-traditional property?
I mean, for me, it's a great. I mean, I coached high school basketball for almost 20 years. So actually, like having an opportunity of working in esports, and then also seeing the other side of the NBA up close is definitely, I feel like, one of the advantages of our esport is that, you know, not only does it deal with gaming, but actually you get to go to the games, and you get to, you know, I've met with Sean Marks of the Brooklyn Nets and different things of that nature. And, you know, you get to learn a lot of different things from, you know, just stemming from esports and our game. So definitely I've taken advantage of a lot of different opportunities.
I would say on my end, what I like about esports, especially for people who are coming up, is that there's a lot more opportunity to kind of create things. I think a lot of the people on the panel have kind of shown like their ability to build something of themselves or of ideas that they have, even if maybe necessarily they didn't have the exact specific background that would be expected for them to go into like a fully developed league, such as like the NFL. So I think what's really cool about esports is that a lot of these pillars are being built in real time and provides a lot of opportunity for the people who are ready to do the grunt work and ready to get on the grind to do it. I think a lot of people that I'm speaking with are just great examples of that, of kind of just going forward and doing it and building these projects and being successful. And if I was graduating college or looking at my first job, I would see that as a tremendous opportunity where you're not going to be told no, you know, or you're not going to be told like, this is how our league is run for 100 years. So you have to stay within these confines.
I think sometimes when covering the NBA 2K league, as, you know, imagine what covering the NBA was like in the 50s, where, you know, the early years of a league, and you're thinking like the league starts in the first place because there are clearly enough people interested in this that even though there isn't, you know, even though you have people like CURT talked about the MPBA, like there are organizations that are running tournaments, but there aren't necessarily there isn't an official NBA recognized league. So now we're covering something from the ground up. And like I said, I'm telling these stories that have not been told before. It's not like an NBA player that by draft day, they've already had these stories covered since they were in AAU. I mean, we're talking about people from the first time. We're trying new things that established, players out there wouldn't necessarily have the leeway to do, but because this is the first time I'm talking specifically from the broadcast journalistic standpoint, we're able to take some chances and kind of see what works and reinvent the way that you're watching a product.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think for me, what's been really interesting is since graduating, it's not, in a lot of ways, it's not that different from traditional sports. Our team still has marketing department, a communications department, et cetera. So what I learned at Syracuse was very applicable. But what everyone said, there's this huge ground for innovation. Just in the last 2 years, we have gone overseas. We've taken tournaments on the road. We've created a pretty unique tournament schedule. So it's constantly, you have the opportunity to innovate, but while still feeling, I know for all the students out there, that what you learned in school totally aligns with what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and the big theme that I heard there was about starting something new. And in the day that we live in right now, with coronavirus affecting everybody's ability to go out and work and go to school, we're all home. This is the time to start something new and really reach and try to make a name for yourself, or even start something that could provide a lot of value to other people. So I really appreciate that. And going back to Syracuse a little bit, Chris, during your time at Cuse is when esports really started to gain traction as a business and a sport. So what advice would you give to current students looking to break out into the industry?
Yeah, I mean, similar to, I think I remember what I heard on like the very first day from Professor Veely. It's like, we got there and he said, you can't be a fan as much anymore, and you can't just be a player. So I'd say esports is similar. There are a ton of, obviously, esports fans out there, ton of people that play video games, but you need to understand the business outside of that. So honestly, I don't think my suggestions change very much from if you said, you wanted to work for the NBA or you wanted to work in the NFL. You just need to do kind of basically what we're doing today, and learn as much as you can about the business, talk to as many people as you can. Because yeah, I'd say it's the same thing. If you know about the game itself, that's not going to be enough.
Of course, and that all starts with networking. So students, reach out on LinkedIn, start messaging people. Now's the time to really get your name out there and just learn from everybody. And CURT, in case anybody's listening to this who's interested in breaking into the 2K League as a player or as a professional on the operations side of things, who's inspired by the growth of the league, like how would one be able to put themselves in position to, be recognized and make that jump?
Well, the NPBA gets a lot of recognition, but there are other circuits that are still, going, like the WR Pro-Ams and a lot of different tournament sectors, like top tier leagues and different things of that nature. But basically, the 2K community is located primarily on Twitter. And you have a lot of GMs and coaches who come from the community that's constantly on, engaging on Twitter to be able that you can reach out to, like myself, famous enough from Heat Check Gaming. I mentioned Taiwan from Dallas, Big West from Hornets. Like it's very interactive. And now we even have parents, who's created groups and different things of that nature where you can stay informed. I have a podcast where I still put out a lot of 2K League information and everything like that. And it's, like Jeff has a podcast where he puts out a lot of different information. So it's just basically networking through Twitter and, even occasionally on Instagram. But like the league does a great job in putting out information that allows a lot of people to engage in a lot of different opportunities. And when we see it, we retweet it, we share it, and we put the information out there. So everybody's pretty much user friendly. You can DM us and all types of things. I've taken credit for always responding to every DM that I can. to be able to shed light on the 2K League and anybody who's hoping to get into the league and sharing these opportunities that they provide.
And something I was able to see firsthand during my time at BSE last summer where we met was that this isn't just something for established professionals. You know, if you're young and you have the drive, you know, you can make it there too. I know that your assistant GM is about college age, and, you know, the Minnesota Timberwolves T-Wolves Gaming just hired someone off your staff. So can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes. Nicholas Gartrell was the business operation assistant at BSE for NetsGC. And he spent his first season there assisting between myself and Joshua Press, who's the senior vice president at BSE Global, who oversees NetsGC. He split time working with us and just on the daily operations, just assisting us. And after his time was up, he was rewarded with an assistant coaching position with T-Wolves Gaming. And I'm definitely proud of him and happy for him. He's young, driven. He's been in college during that time, still, you know, taking classes, whether it be online or when he was in New York, he would physically take classes. So it's definitely his hunger and his attitude and drive is definitely something that can be used at any of the teams that's in the 2K League. Now, Wyoan Cooney is an interesting story. He's 20 years old, probably the youngest employee at BSE, but he not only works for NetsGC as my assistant and the social media manager, he actually works on the Brooklyn Nets side as their social media assistant as well. So definitely, if you're hungry and willing to put in the work and time, it's opportunities waiting on you. So pretty much, you know, that's I think it started from myself, and when I seen people who possess the same things that I had in me, I took notice to it and provided an opportunity for them the same way I was provided one. So I think it was just like the gift that keeps on giving.
And if I could just add on to that, kind of, because like, look, the reason that OG King CURT has a job in the league is because he was doing this before it was even a league. And I think that you have to recognize sometimes someone like Nick, who he just mentioned, spent the whole first season. He happened to live in New York, showing up at the studio, watching, engaging with people before he even got a job. So if you're, whether it's the NBA 2K League or whether it's whatever field you might have some interest in, you have to be willing to put in that work that might not be rewarded right off the bat, you know, quote unquote, fairly paid to get to where you want to be. If that's something, you know, if one of these, something like sports business, especially where there's such a high supply for a lower demand of jobs, you have to be willing to put that time in. For me, I basically showed up at a lot of NBA 2K League stuff to cover it at the beginning until they basically told me I was actually working. Like, I just kind of showed up until someone told me to stop showing up. And that's kind of how you have to carry yourself in this business.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I was able to see that firsthand at the 2K League studios. You know, Chris was kind enough to give me a tour last summer as to, you know, what the game day atmosphere is like. And, you know, players are ruthless out there. They don't hold back. They're very competitive. So do you have any interesting stories from your time broadcasting?
Oh man, do I have interesting stories? What can I tell? Well, so part of my role in the first two seasons was to interview the guys after games. So that is when you get them, like, during the season, there's a sideline reporter, and I did some sideline reporting where you interview the guy right after the game. He's got, 30 to 45 seconds, 2 to 3 quick questions, and then they move on. But I would have a time to sort of develop the storylines with these guys. And there are intense rivalries that, as we mentioned, go back before this league even started. I mentioned OFAB, Dimes has been mentioned. They were the first 2 players picked. They go back and forth. All I have to do is say, so what's it like? Either I could say you're playing Dimes in 4 games, and OFAB is going to give me a quote about how, he wants to prove that he should have been the first pick 2 years ago. And guys go back and forth like that. We had trades for the first time last year. There was a big trade. Hood was a big player on T-Wolves Gaming. He got traded to Heat Check Gaming. And when the T-Wolves beat Heat Check and the T-Wolves went on an incredible run to make the playoffs and win, they had some things to say about, you know, that they got redemption by beating him after trading him. So I see those storylines. And look, that's what helps in terms of actually getting the, you know, the players to the fans to tune in for storylines.
It's not that much different from, you know, the NBA where they're actually shooting basketballs in real life.
Well, they all think they're NBA players, to be honest. Like, you know, they all think that they're playing in the NBA, and it's part of the NBA vertical, but that's part of the fun of it.
Of course. Jordan, when we spoke, one of your messages that stuck out most to me when we discussed Gen Z entering the workforce was that we, meaning Gen Z, often get lost in the idea of networking up versus networking across. Can you please elaborate on what that really means?
Cool. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, but I think it's something important that I try to say when I get invited to these things is like, a lot of people really try to focus on networking across, networking up, where it's like, okay, I need to talk to somebody who went to my university that's maybe already made it in this space. And I think there's a place for that, but where I actually think 80 to 90% of your most effective networking that will get you to places you want to go will actually happen somewhere closer along your peer group. And I encourage people all the time to actually really focus about the people that maybe you're in class with, or the people that you're working with. Like, not only don't see them as like competitors to what you want to do, but really try to see them as collaborators and try to think of ways you can actually work with the people. There's a lot of successful people who are probably on this thread who are going to go on to things over time. It's important to build those connections and those like true bonds now. So I think that those partnerships actually help you more. Like throughout my entire experience, different companies that I've worked for and different opportunities I've had, it's always started by having the ability to have someone that's like at my own level first, or someone that's maybe within a few years from me, and then they help me kind of move up and like get talk to other people. So I think that's really important for kind of just students and new people to realize. And I think what you can see from that is more success stories.
Thank you for that.
I'd add too, like right now, there's no better time for you guys to start something new, something exciting, work with your peers. We had a 3-on-3 tournament just a few weeks ago. First time we'd ever done anything like this. And our broadcast team, actually, Jeff was a part of it. There was a whole virtual studio, but we had people, I think it was across 5 different states, all working together. So don't let the space make it feel like you guys can't keep networking and working together to build something cool, because obviously right now is a really unique opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and we're all in the same boat looking for the same opportunities, so why not get to know each other first? You know, Jeff, within the digital media and broadcast team for the 2K League, we've seen you in a lot of different roles, from social media host to a sideline reporter to analyst. What advice do you have for others out there to get prepared and be ready for different roles that may come their way, whether it's in 2K League, whether it's in a different industry, trying to enter their careers, or even in the middle of their careers?
Yeah, I mean, look, and you kind of brought up a lot of things. Sometimes people ask me, what do you do for the 2K League? And I told you broadcaster because, you know, I could say anything. I've done a bunch of different things. And basically I've had the attitude of I'm going to show up, and wherever they tell me to go, I'm going to go. And I think that for me, this goes beyond the 2K League. I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, you know, you could have more followers on Twitter, for example, if you were just an esports reporter or just an NBA reporter. You play, you know, you spread yourself thin and that affects you. I say that's fine, because my long-term goals are, I don't know necessarily what my long-term goal is, but I want to keep my options open. And I feel like if I work hard enough and have that ability to jump in and, you know, be part of anything, I think that strengthens, and this goes beyond just journalism. This goes to, if you can put on different hats and provide someone, an employer, with different skills, you know, where you can actually bounce around and, you know, have more value in that sort of way, you're going to be important. I'll give you an example. So I am freelance, and so right now the NBA 2K League isn't going on. So I was, you know, I wanted to do some extra work. And so I reached out to some people from an organization called Gen G, and was, made sure to put an email thread with someone named Jordan Sherman, who had me doing an array of stuff last week for a tournament for the University of Kentucky that I didn't necessarily have the closest connection with, but I tried to do my research and tried to, provide as much from anchoring to hosting a selection show for their NBA 2K tournament to I was ready to cast if I had to, but I think that made me, and I guess Jordan can speak to this more if I'm just talking hot air or not, a valuable asset, as well as my social media, abilities to just throw out there and promote and be kind of a PR representative for what was going on.
And when you started off, studying journalism, you clearly had a passion to go and cover something and make sure it's broadcasted to a larger audience. I'm sure you never saw it ended, coming to this, and that's awesome. Were there other, traditional media sectors that you were interested at first?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Northwestern thinking that I was going to be a play-by-play broadcaster, and I was going to call basketball, baseball, hockey, football. I was going to do it all. And one thing, and I'm sure if there are any Newhouse students or anyone in the broadcast world on the line, I realized I watched kids go to, be sent around the country to be news reporter, weather people or news reporters in small markets and minor league baseball broadcasters in certain places. And I was just hesitant to believe that was kind of like the model of the last 50 years for working your way up. And I was like, I think that this digital media space is where I really want to go into, where I can. And so my first job was in digital media at the Post Game. And I was like, I want to go somewhere where I can write, where I can do our interviews, where I can podcast, where I can be on video, where I can learn social media, where I can learn all these skills that then I can also put myself out there and potentially get roles down the road. So I think I've took an unorthodox route to kind of being in this now traditional broadcast stature for the NBA 2K League, but I felt that I needed to, especially in a field like esports, come from the digital area of sports and be tapped into all of these things than just be a traditional, in a studio in a small market and learn that way.
Thank you for shedding some light on the importance of, being the importance of adaptability when it comes to your career path. For a lot of students like me, we'd like to think, especially with our generation, that, our first job is going to be our favorite, or, that all of our hard work is going to pay off. And, with the current state of our economy and the climate right now, that's kind of showing that, life can throw you some curveballs. So, Chris, when it comes to where you thought that you were going to enter into, sports business in general, what were some avenues that you were thinking about taking, and how are you transitioning now with being in the 2K League for a couple of years and seeing this really grow, while also understanding that, this is not your final destination, but just another stepping stone to making it to where you want to be?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I wasn't necessarily looking just to go into esports or just with the 2K League. I did my capstone with the Knicks. I was in my final semester, and like all the seniors out there, you have to cast a wide net. So when I got into the 2K League and with the 2K League, at that point, the team was honestly really small. We're still really small and do a lot of different things individually. But at that point, it was 7 people running a 17-team league. So wearing a ton of different hats and learning a lot, from helping with events 3 days a week, to partnerships, to helping out with league operations and managing over 100 players. So I'd say for me, the experience has been and still is really amazing, just because I don't necessarily know, as you said, where I want to be down the line and exactly what area of the industry I want to be working in. So the 2K League for me has provided a really good platform for me to learn a ton of different areas of the industry firsthand, and get a ton of different experience.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm just going to put in another reminder for all of our audience that you're more than welcome to ask some questions for our Q&A that's going to take place in a few minutes. So please send those in privately through the chat on Zoom. Jordan, essentially all businesses around the country have been impacted by coronavirus, and not just sports. Other than working from home now, how has your day-to-day job changed over this time?
So for us, we've been kind of fortunate in the sense that because we have offices in New York, LA, Shanghai, and Seoul, we've been working remote with a lot of our counterparts for a long time. So we were fully set up, which was good, and we had like that built in. And then we just really leaned into it as much as possible. We saw this as an opportunity for us to showcase esports, streaming, doing things remotely. The tournament we ran with the University of Kentucky this week was done completely remote, where you're activating with the Penn Relays next Friday, completely remote. So we're just using tech the best way we can. We know that colleges and people in general want to really build community through gaming and kind of keep, people are still being friends and people still want to be social. Just gaming and esports is their outlet to it. So we've just been focused. We don't want to shut the business down. We don't want to get rid of any employees. We want everyone to stay focused and keep working, and that's what we've been doing.
And this is a question for everybody, what can the sport and entertainment sectors do now to help mitigate the economic impact of, widespread event cancellations? I know we had to deal with that with the conference, so we pivoted online. What are some things that you guys have been trying to implement in your businesses?
For myself, it's a great time to network and collaborate with a lot of different people that typically you may not have the time, because for me personally, for most of us, the 2K League, if it was going on in our normal schedule, it's a lot of things that we would be attending to and wouldn't have time to pay attention to. So I basically took the time to collaborate with a lot of different people, be a guest on a lot of different podcasts, and vice versa with my own, but just more time to actually present the league, present the 2K League to a lot of people who may not be aware of it. And, I've just been making the best of this time, just basically just presenting the product and to people who don't know and are interested, but just a lot of people just don't know. And I think this is our time, like with the 3-for-all tournament that was put on still in our absence of our regular season, it brought a lot of light because it was a different community. And I think it created interest about the league, and now a lot of people are really anticipating whenever we start.
Yeah, I mean, I think just kind of adding to that, I've been doing the same thing with podcasts. I had talked for a long time about starting my own, and now I'm like, well, now's the perfect time to start it, record on Zoom and make it happen. But I think that we're going to see, for those students who are coming out right now, into the world, we're going to see a much different landscape of the sports world. And this goes beyond the NBA 2K League. I think that there's been a lot of conversation about really how much revenue is generated just on ticket sales alone. And I think that you're going to see some innovations made to the viewing experience when there are no fans allowed, because into arenas, into stadiums, because leagues are still going to need to make that revenue. And I think that people realize how much is being drawn from the eyeballs watching sports now more than ever when they're going on. And I think that you're just going to see a lot of innovation in the next year or two that, fortunately or unfortunately, is going to stick in the industry.
Yeah, I probably sound like a broken record, but I think, it's just a pretty unreal opportunity for people at all ages to really make an impact right now. I know for me, I'm one of the youngest people on our team, but if I have an idea, like it's a very blank canvas to go and bring things to the table. So I think this change, it's such a unique situation and it's unknown for everyone. So no matter who you are, how old you are, what position you're in, it's a time where everyone's kind of scrambling and you have a really cool opportunity to either create something on your own or bring something to the table for someone else.
Thank you, guys. So we're going to switch it over to our Q&A sessions. We have a few great questions from some of our audience. So I'm going to start off. Chris Parsons asks, for Chris and Jeff, from both the marketer's perspective and the journalist perspective, can you please dive deeper into what the strategic public relations mix, earned media, social, websites, etc., look like for an esports superstar versus a traditional sports superstar? Go Newhouse.
All right. Chris, you want to start with that from more of a, more of like a business perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, obviously, I'm not on the communication side, so It's definitely not my forte and what I'm spending my day-to-day on, but I think our communications department in our league in general has done a really good job of getting our stories out to some really traditional media like ESPN, who's covered some exclusives for us, and then very much more esports media, whether there's some esports reporters for Forbes, whether it's Jeff who has exclusives for us. So for us, I'd say we kind of the same thing. You know, we want to build our brand and build awareness, and so we're not focusing just on one area. And I don't know how different it is from traditional sports, because we do still want to get coverage from traditional sports outlets, but we just cast a wider net in terms of who we can go out to.
I think so. And Chris mentioned, I've been also, one of my titles has been the insider, and I've gotten out, you know, been the first individual to certain news stories, which is interesting in itself, because like many esports leagues, the NBA 2K League controls its own broadcast rights. Again, we're talking about an early stage of a league. But I think that you talked about the players. The question had a little bit to do with the players. The players are entitled to do their own marketing, and, you know, they can promote themselves. They can sign their own endorsement deals. We have had some players who have gone on to, you know, have endorsement deals that are not necessarily just created by the NBA 2K League. BSE has been mentioned. Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment has their own PR and marketing department if they want to promote their own players, if they want to get their own stories out there. And I think that adds to the league and the team model that you have. If you're a player, you have the league and the teams. And, you know, if you have a manager or something along those lines, you have all these people trying to get your story out there to the world.
Thank you. So we have another question from Francis McCarthy.
We know him. We know him well.
Both Jeff and Kurt have a podcast that they started recently. Could you give the group some tips on why you started your podcast, how to get started, and how this could benefit an up-and-coming professional?
For me, it started back the end of season 1, right after the finals. Me and a couple of other people who were inspiring to be in the league, we were just talking on a rooftop, just having dreams and thoughts of making the league. And I had already had a good reputation in the community, but I was trying to figure out a way to be more engaging beyond just 2K. And so one day I just tweeted out something, because I'm always known for spraying some wisdom and everything like that to the 2K community. So before I hit tweet, I just put hashtag OG2cents, and I sent it, and I started getting a lot of positive feedback from it. And over a year had went by, and I was like, man, I said, why don't I just turn this into a show where people can actually get the meaning behind some of the tweets that I put out? Because, you know, a lot of times you tweet something and, like, people can take it 50 million ways. Like, you don't have time to sit there and always explain entirely what you meant. So I said, maybe if I put it into a show, now I can basically break it down and have people understand it better. So I took my OG2cents tweets and turned it into the OG2cents podcast. And now I have basically built the episodes off of prior tweets that I had put out. And it's been doing pretty good. And I do it occasionally by myself, and then sometimes I have guests, but it's like lifestyle and gaming. It's a lot of different things that you can relate to on the show. Even if you don't play video games, it's still kind of like a life style and culture blend. And then obviously I still talk about 2K and things of that nature, but definitely it was something that inspired from the tweets. And then the people who support me, they was like, finally, it's about time. Like when I finally opened up and did it. So it's doing pretty good, and you can, you know, it's on Apple, Spotify, and Podbean.
So for me, and as Francis knows, I had a podcast called the 102 Pod, which was about the first 102 players in the 2K League, the first season. And I did it totally independently. And when I kind of started doing some more stuff for the league, I shut that down, was focusing on league verticals. And so the podcast that I've started in the last couple of weeks it's called Eyes on the Prize. It's not specifically gaming. It's not specifically sports. I've left it open-ended specifically. And I've had people over the last couple of years who've come to me and said, we want you to do a podcast for a specific team or sport, or we want you to do an esports podcast. And for me, it's been about two things. I don't want to just zero in on one particular topic. And two, I want to own the IP. So right now I have a podcast that I am doing through Zoom. I'm taping every single thing that I do. If people listen to the audio version of the podcast, spectacular. But I know that as someone who's not exactly famous and out there in the world, that the best way for me to get engagement on what I'm doing is to get all those video clips, put the best ones on social media, and see what happens with it. And to me, that's what I'm doing here. It's an asset to everything else that I'm doing. And I had to wait until I was at a point where I felt confident with, because I'm not getting paid anything to do my own podcasts. I needed to get to a point where I felt confident with my own work that I could have this on the side with the hope that interviewing some really cool people who I've had the chance to meet in the industry, I can then use that as a way to create great content and showcase myself for potential future work as a freelancer.
And you mentioned that at the NBA 2K League, they own and create their own content, which is what you guys are starting to do in terms of vertical integration with your brand. Is that something that you kind of took after the league, or is that something that you went out and did with your own motivation and intuition?
You're saying in terms of creating our own brand, like if that was something that we use? I mean, I would say just the NBA 2K League has been so great for me as just what it's first of all, the way that the league has taken care of me has been amazing. But on top of that, the way that, as soon as I started doing stuff in season 1, I'm getting messages from people like, hey, what's this thing you're doing? You're in East, could you come on and talk about this? Can you do this? Can you do? And it was like, I was like, whoa, I clearly the industry is hungry to know what is going on. And the fact of the matter is, right now we're seeing that more than ever, where I'm getting calls about, people are calling me like, is this esports this time? Is this esports? I'm like, first of all, I want people to stop thinking that esports is celebrating this moment that we're in right now. But I think that it's clear that there's a lot of interest in what's going on in the esports world.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Kurt.
Well, no, I was going to say for myself, I looked at it as like the 2K League was my big break, so to speak, and that the brand that I was building prior to, I just looked at it as an extension and an opportunity to be able to grow in a lot of different areas. And I've been inspired, by Jeff and a ton of other people in the industry that cover journalism and create content and different things of that nature. And I like what he said about building up the confidence in what your primary is and being able to branch off from that. Because it took a lot for me. It was easy to hit tweet and do all of that and everything, but putting the show together and doing everything, like, I only do it once a week, but just having that confidence to be able to push it and still be able to maintain what my responsibility is from day to day. That's a major key.
I also think in whatever you do in life, you have to recognize your worth, your value, and what you're actually skilled at. If you're a Syracuse student and you start a podcast tomorrow and you were doing a sports business podcast, and you say cold email Robert Kraft and he's nice enough to say, yeah, I'll come on your podcast. Are you really ready for that? And it's not a bad thing to admit, hey, maybe I should start, like what I'm doing right now is starting with people. I've been lucky enough to meet some really cool known people in the industry, but people that I know, that I'm not trying something that I'm not necessarily ready for. I want to build things up to the point that I can do something really impactful when I talk to that, important person, as opposed to just throwing things at the wall and hoping that they hit.
That's great. So we have two final questions to wrap it up. One is from Joe Murray. How are the 2K League fans in terms of what do they expect out of teams? How are they loyal to the teams, players? Just an overall view.
Kurt and Jordan, I'll let you guys touch on that just from the team side, what you guys see in the community.
Jordan, you want to touch on that?
Sure. I think it's great. I mean, I think the league has a long way to go, of course. And I think what's interesting is the teams have an interesting perspective where it's like, how are they trying to transition people from the NBA team to the esports team? Or are they looking to get new esports fans? And I think kind of judging the line between the two, because the players in the 2K League are different than the players you see in the NBA game. I think for ours, we're also trying to work through, are we trying to get different fans from like our League of Legends and our Overwatch teams? Or do we specifically want NBA 2K fans? What we've seen on our side is there's actually less crossover than maybe we thought. Like, I'm not sure necessarily if we'll get all of our League of Legends fans from Seoul into the NBA 2K. Maybe that'll happen over time. But for us, I think what we're really trying to do is we're focused on our style of play. We're focusing on our players. So our hope is that people will become fans of us as a company because of how we play and the types of players we have on our team. And then we're obviously really going to go big in China and try to like localize that support as like the first ever team that's based abroad that gets to play against the US teams. And hopefully that for us will help us build a really big fan base.
And one thing I wanted to say is like I was like in the 2K community, I was one of the first people to actually start branding and like, you know, with a logo, with promotional videos and different things of that nature. And with me being the oldest player at that time in the community, that's where the whole OG comes from, is that I take it upon myself, even within my organization and outside, is to help some of the players learn themselves and be able to create a brand, because we're dealing with a demographic that most of them don't even know themselves. Like, they're still learning and experiencing life at its earlier stages. So it's like 1 second they go from being a player at their residence or maybe their parents' residence, and now they're, you know, in a new market, in a new league, and having some notoriety with it, but also not having that structure and guidance that's needed to help them elevate, help their organizations elevate, and then that in turns that helps the league elevate. So I think it's something that I'm sure each organization is helping their players understand themselves and helping map that out for their personal success, and like I said, leads to organizational success and the league success.
And for our final question, from Casey Reiger, for anyone in the group, I know that you're all at different points in your career, but I imagine each one of you has had to face some sort of adversity along the way. Can you talk about a specific instance where you've had to overcome that adversity? And, you know, looking back on it, what has that really taught you today?
My story, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, it's just unique for me because right before I signed with Brooklyn, my mom passed away. So I was already in the midst of dealing with the league while she was still living, but I was torn because I wasn't sure if I necessarily wanted to move. I got out of the military in 2001 to be back home with my mom because my dad had passed away in 2001. So I told myself only way I would leave, unfortunately, is like if she wasn't there. And ironically, it was just one of those situations that right before it came time for me to sign with Brooklyn, she passed away. And in the highlight of my life, I'm enjoying the time in an NBA 2K League, but I'm also battling like not having my mom or dad to be there to witness the amount of work that I had put in to get to where I was at. So just battling that part of it, where you think you should be happy and enjoying just fruits of your labor, but dealing with that at the same time and not being able to really open up about that, because the day-to-day operations with running the NBA 2K League is not a walk in the park. Between managing players and dealing with the league on a daily basis. So like trying to still stay at a top level doing that and dealing with the loss of my mom, like it was tough, but I fought through it, because it was one thing she said before she passed away, is that she wanted to know that I was okay, and that I would be okay without her. And I've kept that promise to her, and I've been fine. And you know, so that's pretty much what I've battled through since being in the league.
Thanks for sharing that, Kurt. That's
Yeah.
Beautiful story. You know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry for your loss, Kurt. And thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Mine is like, my story is, I guess, a little lighter than that. But, you know, I think that there will be people that will relate to this. So about a year and a half ago now, I left my previous full-time job as a digital sports editor I knew that I had, you know, some work that I could do in the NBA 2K League from a freelance perspective. And I said to myself, I had spent 3 years in New York City working my tail off. And I was like, I've networked, you know, networking has been something that has been mentioned all the time. If you guys go to New York City or probably LA or any of these big places, I would like to say there are more than 365 networking and panel events a year. So you can go to almost anyone, any night. So I would be pounding the pavement, meeting people, staying in touch with people. And, you know, people had said, one day maybe we'll work together. So I quit my job, had some of the NBA 2K League stuff. I knew that wasn't going to be, you know, reach my full-time monetary potential. But I said, I've got all these connections, you know, I'm going to pound the pavement and have, you know, I'm going to make more money this year because I'm going to work with all these people who I knew that I could have worked with. And it was tough at the beginning. Like I wasn't getting the work that I thought I would get. And then you start looking around, you're like, okay, I'm paying New York City rent. The monetary flow is not what it was before, and it's not coming in. And you start to, all of a sudden there's no floor, you know, the floor is zero. And I start thinking like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And it was just a matter of like pushing myself to be like, okay, if you're working this hard and it's not working, you have to kick it to another gear. You have to try something new. You have to maybe do something to prove to someone, you know, take a little bit less or start somewhere here in this vertical that you're trying to then prove to other people that you can get up to the top. And I think it's also just recognizing, you know, believe it or not, this is a Tim Tebow quote that he once said in an interview where I interviewed him. He was like, you know, things are never as bad as they seem and they're never as good as they seem, which is, I don't know if that's dark or not, but it's something that I recognize that like, just dial it back. And even nowadays during this time, I'm like, I'll be 27 next month. I've been on the, you know, on the NBA 2K League broadcasts. I've been on MSG Network's pregame shows. Like I'm doing all right. So relax and keep grinding and things will work out.
So I'm about to wrap everything up, but I'd like to first start off by saying thank you all very much for joining us today. We're incredibly honored to have you be a part of the first ever Syracuse Sport Business Conference event. So that speaks a lot. We've covered topics such as entrepreneurship, you know, going out and starting something new in today's climate, getting your start, networking up and across. And, you know, just all the great things the NBA 2K League has been working on and everything that you guys have been doing to promote and, you know, increase the brand's awareness across the world. So thank you all for your hard work, your advice, and your stories. We really appreciate it. This is going to be a recurring weekly event every Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. Next week, we'll be talking about we'll have some hiring managers on giving advice on how to really, you know, find your footing right now in this current climate, as well as, you know, advice for people who are looking to like jump ship elsewhere. We really appreciate your time. Go check out the OG 2 Cents podcast. If you guys have any plugs you'd like to throw in right now, feel free. And yeah, thank you so much. We're looking forward to seeing you all next week.
Yeah, not a plug on my end, but I just want to say shout out to Ben and your guys' whole team. I know you put in a ton of hours to plan the first ever conference. Obviously a huge bummer it couldn't happen in person, but pretty awesome to see you guys pivot so quickly and now start this weekly session. So awesome work.
Because I was going to say my girlfriend wouldn't let me end without a go orange. So I'm doing it.
No, I want to say thanks for having me on, Ben. I enjoyed our time at BSC when I first met you, and I liked how, you know, you approached me and everything, and just keep doing what you're doing. everybody follow NetsGC at Nets Gaming Crew on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You know, this is our second year in the league, and just appreciate your support.
Same. I would just say congrats to the team and just for everyone for taking the time. I think obviously we didn't get to talk to a lot of the people, but my guess is that it's a lot of hardworking people who want to find a way to break in to esports or maybe just want to learn more. So I think you all hopefully took a good step and found this helpful. And thanks for having me.
Of course. Shout out to the Syracuse Sport Business Conference team. Started out with 3 and ended up being 29. And we really appreciate all the hard work that you guys have put in to help make this possible. So shout out to you guys. All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And thanks for joining us. See you next week.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.